Hello and welcome to the next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. So, Graham, we've got a long-time friend of yours on the podcast this week.
We do. First of all, she's one of the most, shall we say, one of the poshest friends I've got. She's had amazing jobs in her career. She was the chair, I think we'll call it chair. I'd prefer to call it chairman of the Direct Marketing Association. But she started her career at National Geographic. She's met presidents, she's met prime ministers. Jenny Moseley, welcome to the next 100 Days podcast.
Thank you, Graham. Pleasure to be here.
Well, you're very special to me anyway. We must have met, 20 odd years ago and possibly even longer. But you now are a trustee at the Wellington Trust. Now, that's based on the ship that's moored on the Thames. Is it a ship or is it a boat? Let's get the title right.
It's a ship.
Right.
In fact, it's a warship.
Ah, well, right. Okay, we're narrowing it down then. And the actual location, I know it's more on the side of the Thames somewhere, but can you put it into our heads exactly where it is?
I can indeed. It's right opposite Temple Tube Station.
Okay, we're from the north, so we don't know it as well as you, Jenny.
Between Westminster and Blackfriars, the City of London. In fact, 2/3 of us is moored in Westminster and 1/3 in the City of London. So
I'm getting a better idea. So it's right. Okay.
Now, you're saying us northerners don't know this. Well, back in the dim and distant past, when I worked for PwC, our London office that I spent a lot of time in was in Embankment Place, next to Embankment Tube.
Very close.
Literally through the tube station onto the embankment, and quite often lunchtimes when I was working in London, I'd walk up and down the Victoria Embankment. So, no doubt into the area where the ship is.
Yeah, and you can cycle along now.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised that you made it back to the office, Kevin. Parading yourself up and down there for all kinds of ill-gotten gains and so forth. But,
Thank you.
But we've got special police for you, your type of person now, Kevin. But you, Jenny, you've basically, tell us first of all, give us an idea of the kind of things that you did when you were at the National Geographic.
Okay, well, I started out in their office in London, and I was the most junior of the juniors, if you like. But my subject was geography, and I was very lucky to get a position there. I didn't get it because of my geographical skills. I got it because I could do shorthand and typing.
That makes you different, I suppose. But you obviously went on because you had a stellar career.
I became assistant director of the office within 3 or 4 years, and worked there for a number of years until they decided to close the office down in its current location. And I actually took the office outside of London to closer to where I live in Guildford, because I was the only one that travelled to London. The rest of the team was office based, looked after membership queries and sold subscriptions and sold books and atlases and all sorts of other things. But myself and my number two, we would go off on assignment or go and look for treasures in the British Library or the Victorian Albert Museum or the Bodleian Library. I do know our nation's libraries and museums quite well.
Oh, they're beautiful. Kevin, you must like this, Kevin, because Kevin has a separate interest, which I would imagine is featured in the National Geographic. Do you want to tell us what that is, Kevin?
Well, big interest in trains, which I'm sure will have featured in the National Geographic on many occasions for many different reasons.
Trading, did you say?
Trains.
Railways.
Trains, oh, goodness, yes. And there was a wonderful photographer of trains called Owen Smith, I think his name was. And he would light the trains up, the steam trains up with, tremendous amount of light before flash became part of our photographic lives. His photos are beautiful. Yeah, of course, we've done the Orient Express and the one across the Alps, and another one in North America, and those big hobo trains that traveled the length of America after the railroads hit big time, if you like. So yes.
This it's almost feature. You help people with their marketing, and you've helped people like National Geographic. You're now helping the Wellington Trust. And well, first of all, let's narrow this down. The trust is there to make sure that the Wellington ship survives, isn't it, or thrives? I don't know what the right word is.
Survives will do. She's in constant need of preservation, if you like, and maintenance. We have a wonderful engineer who's been on the ship for 35 years, and he knows every rivet and bulkhead intimately. So whatever I need to know, I ask Martin Brownjohn. He's wonderful. The ship was built in 1934 and launched in Devonport. And for her first 4 years, she sailed the South Pacific, diplomatic missions in the British Protectorate, lots of visits to inhabited islands, and the South Pacific area that she and other ships of her class, and others indeed, formed part of the Royal New Zealand Navy. That was they were going to be the basis of the Royal New Zealand Navy, but war came along, and she was called back for war service, and basically she started her first convoy escort duty on her way back in 1939. So
she's been about. If it came to it, and it came out, it was taken out of your hands, would she be seaworthy?
She has no engines.
Oh, right. Okay. So that one's not going to last very long. But assuming that somebody could lob an engine in there,
No, it would be difficult, but not impossible. I never say never. The Honourable Company of Master Mariners rescued her from the Pembroke mud in 1947-48, as she was going to be destroyed as superfluous to the Royal Navy.
Right.
And they brought her onto the Thames as the floating livery hall. And the Wellington Trust was formed to help defray some of the costs of the maintenance and preservation work that needed to go on, and still does. So she's been on the Thames as a bit of a landmark since 1948.
Wow.
1948. That's not a very old ship.
Yeah.
Come on, Kevin.
At that point, 1948. That's not a very old ship, is it?
She's 90 years old. We launched our fundraising campaign, Wellington at 90, because she was launched in Devonport on the 29th of May, 1934. And we had a little ceremony on board to commemorate those sailors and passengers of other ships who died during the World War II, the Battle of the Atlantic, the longest battle, 6.5 years. And so we had that ceremony just to kick off our fundraising, and now we're doing regular things for the rest of this year. And then we have the ship's logs, and a couple of books written by previous crew members, and lots of documentation. So every time a special date comes up, we'll be doing something else special on board. And we've got something planned for December, when she went for her first sea trials. And then in 2025, there'll be something right up to her centenary in 2034.
But she's to Kevin's point, she's been there since 1948.
Yeah,
actually at the side of the Thames.
Yeah.
Now, relatively, that's older than well, probably all of us on this call. So basically,
Yeah.
from that point of view, the whole idea of it is she's been there for a heck of a long time. But as a ship, she's been in this world for 90 years now.
Yes.
You know
But
that.
only 14 years in actual service, which is a remarkably short life.
But she did 250,000 miles in that
Yeah.
time. So she was a very valuable ship during the Battle of the Atlantic. She escorted 103 convoys.
Wow.
Mostly, but not always, from Sierra Leone, where the trading from Australia and South Africa and New Zealand and other parts of the world would come to Sierra Leone. And then she would pick up the merchant shipping, the convoy of merchant ships, which had coal, which had oil, which had flour, which, sugar, all the supplies that we needed.
Yeah.
To keep the country going, because if we hadn't kept the country going between 39 and 45, the result of the war might not have been the same. Those sailors, we commemorate them quite a lot, but we also commemorate some of the passengers. We've got a member of our Friends Association, Friends of the Wellington, whose aunt was travelling from South America to Gourock in Scotland to get married. And she was on a Royal Mail liner. This will mean something to you, Graham. Royal Mail liner called.
So it was delayed by a couple of days then, presumably.
She was on the Highland Patriot, which on the 1st of October 1940 was torpedoed and sank. And the Wellington went and rescued with actually some danger to herself. She rescued 169 people, including our friend Cindy Sheehan's aunt Marion Cooper, who did make it to her wedding in Scotland. So, but we've got stories of there were children on board because it was a passenger ship. It wasn't a warship.
No.
And this is quite early in the war. It's the first year of the war. We're just over the first year of the war. So they sank a passenger ship. So we had 169 people on board, including kids. So the kids were, having fun, as today's kids do on our educational courses. They were learning Morse code and semaphore and wanting to climb the masts and getting into all sorts of mischief. And the passengers, many of whom were traveling first class, actually mucked in and took over the cooking and cleaning and helped the crew to keep the ship neat and tidy. With, they would have had a crew of 130, and all of a sudden they've got 169 more people on board.
Earlier today, I went to a birthday party just for a few minutes from a girl who was born 12 days after HMS Wellington was launched. So it was her 90th birthday, and my wife Dawn, who you met earlier, she basically works with her and her husband Eric, and they've had an amazing life. Done all kinds of things as individuals, so we were delighted to go along and say hello, and had a nice piece of cake as well. So it's one of those things. You should always celebrate really important birthdays, and so for those people who are kind of keen on history, on maritime history, what better way would it be to get behind your push for the Wellington, especially on its 90th birthday? I mean, let's hope you're around for its 100th, Jenny. I mean, you're bound to be. It's just, I don't know how long you're given as a trustee. I mean, maybe you have to be.
Oh, I won't be around, Graham.
Oh well, I don't know. It's another 10 years.
But we're setting the scene for future trustees and generations of kids, because we have kids taking part in some of our exercises. Many of the ships in World War II were dazzle painted, and so we get them designing their own dazzle.
You'll have to tell me what that is, because I don't know. I mean, Kevin probably knows.
Camouflage that appeared on the sides of ships.
Oh, I see.
During wartime, to sort of break out the outlines so they weren't quite so visible.
Okay, all right, that's clever.
She's painted white now in her South Seas colours,
Yeah,
but that would have shown up too much at sea in the grey North Atlantic. So most of the ships then were painted with actually straight lines and curls and things just to camouflage the sides of the ship so that they
like they do with cars now. If you've got a new sort of Aston Martin, etc., it's got all kinds of different sort of weirdness on it on the side, so you can't actually quite make out its shape and form. Very clever thing to do.
Very clever thing to do.
I saw a lot of that when I was working the Oxford area around. Well, and you got a few manufacturers about Jaguar Land Rover, Mini, Aston Martin, as you say, and quite often you'd see the new models around, and you really had to look twice, three times to try and figure out what this thing was. It was so well camouflaged.
Well, I suppose it's the same for ships, though, isn't it? I mean, I don't, from a distance, I mean, they must have tested this, but presumably, if it just took their eye off it and just didn't immediately see it or spot it, then it probably just preserved life.
I mean, the Atlantic's a big place, so the odds were that they wouldn't see it. But of course, the submarines at the time that Wellington was on the waters, the submarine threat was growing and growing, we just needed that merchant shipping to get through. Otherwise, there would have been starvation. We wouldn't have had fuel to send the aeroplanes up. That kind of thing. It was critical time, and she's not very big. Wellington played her part. She had arms on board. She had 4.5-inch guns and hedgehog bombs and depth charges. And she was one of those ships that was fitted with as new developments came out. The Wellington was refitted with them. So she not only had radar, but she had ASDIC for underwater detection of submarines as well.
Yeah, I mean, your knowledge is amazing, Jenny. I mean, I've got to say, you've really got behind all of this. I mean, well, just going back to the moment before you joined the trust, how did you get involved?
How did I get involved? Well, I am passionate about education of young people who live in disadvantaged communities, underserved communities. We don't particularly like to use the word disadvantaged anymore because it has a stigma to it, but underserved communities. There are a lot in London and there are a lot around the rest of the country. And I got involved with another charity called, at the time, Sir John Cass's Foundation. He was a 17th century philanthropist, and he left money to the trust to build schools and do education and for young people, including young women, wanting to have a couple of schools, which we have now. And I'm still a trustee of that. It's now called the Portal Trust. Mm-hmm. And through the work I was doing on the Portal Trust, some of which was marketing, some of which was PR, some of which was building a website, and some of it which was working with the young people or working with the companies who wanted to support the young people as a member of the grants committee and awarding funding for some most amazing projects. Mm. And through that, I was introduced to the Wellington Trust, who were on the other side of the coin, not being able to give money, but constantly seeking funding for the preservation of the ship, for everyday maintenance, and for educational projects. Mm. So I came on board and took on marketing and development and fundraising and all sorts of other things. When working for National Geographic and being 3,000 miles away from the boss, you kind of have to cover everything. So I became a polymath, if you like. Yeah. And if I didn't know how to do something, I just jolly well found out. And I've taken those skills to the Wellington and worked with some other amazing trustees. I have to say, our trustees are just staggeringly skillful and experienced, not only in maritime matters, but in business, strategy, and museums. We just recruited as a trustee the former Director General of the Merchant Navy, National Museum of the Merchant Navy of the Royal Navy, National Museum of the Royal Navy.
Okay.
And he's Professor Dominic Tweddle has come on board recently, and he's helping us drastically. But I can't belittle any of the work that's done by the other trustees and the ambassadors. And we have volunteers, we have supporters, we have friends in our membership organisation, and we're all so passionate about keeping the Wellington where she is on the Thames that we'll go out and do anything.
Is it? Do you find the interest that you're going to get is here's me asking earlier about the idea of, well, where on earth is it in terms of London? But do you find that the majority of your benefactors or the investors, shall we say, or the donors to the Wellington Trust, are they mainly London based, or do you find that there's a spread of interest right around the UK and elsewhere?
No, it's right around the UK. I mean, some of the big funding organisations, like the National Lottery Heritage Fund, are based in London. But they do have regional hubs, and the Wellington was based in Liverpool and Greenock and Londonderry and Devonport. So from our point of view, we try and encourage interest from both sides, the funding side and also the recipients of that funding on our education and training courses. We try and encourage kids from all over the place to come.
But those are the people who are using your facilities, not necessarily donating to them. So if we focus a little bit on those who are going to, see real value in actually putting some of their hard-earned money into the Wellington Trust rather, where are those people coming from? What would you say to them, and who are they, if you wanted to sort of get your message directly to them?
Okay, thank you. Well, of course, there's a lot of interest from the maritime and marine communities, but it isn't solely that. Our members come from all over the country and donate to our membership organisation. We have a lecture, a Zoom lecture, sometimes on board. The Zoom lectures, we have people from all over the world as time's gone on, and we've conducted these lectures, and we don't charge them for it, but they make a donation at the end, and some of them are multi-donors and some of them are quite large donors, which is wonderful. And we run, we're interested. I mean, I'm interested particularly in philanthropists who may or may not have a connection with the sea. I mean, everybody has a connection with the sea because 97% of our trade comes by sea.
Especially in this country, you're not that far away. I mean, where I am, Kevin's quite close to the sea. About 20 miles away, Kevin, something like that. Whereas,
yes,
and I'm about 70 miles away. So basically, and that's probably one of the longer. I mean, is it Leicester or something like that? That you might be more like 100. That's it. It's not exactly that far from the sea, is it?
No, nowhere in the UK is very far from the sea. What we try and do is to not only target the sea areas, if you like. We target everywhere with projects and look at projects that we might get funded. I've got one in Dundee that I'm trying to fund at the moment. So because a cat came on board in Dundee and sailed on the ship.
Right. A cat.
A cat. So I want to do an honorary ship's cat program for kids where they send in photographs of their cats, and we'll have a little gallery of cats every year to tell the story of pets at sea, menagerie at sea. So we come up with lots of ideas, and what we don't have is the money to do them. And
So, okay,
the education can't happen unless we have a ship.
no,
So obviously,
I
that's
agree
the
with
main
that.
focus. Yeah.
Okay, if you probably have a fundraising goal, and just to give people perspective, let's just hope there's somebody listening to the podcast somewhere around the world who says, "I'll sort that out." Might do. You never know. We're a top 5% podcast in the world, aren't we, Kevin? So basically, we might just reach somebody who says, "Love this idea. How much do you want, Jenny?" Oh, Jenny says X.
Yeah.
What would X be? Just to keep it going for a year.
Okay. We soft launched our Wellington at 90 campaign with GoFundMe.
Okay.
And that was £50,000.
Okay.
And now we're ramping up and we're looking in all directions for £150,000.
Right. So it's not stupidly large, and it's a sort of
that's initial. I mean, we need to then continue, but
okay, fine.
We need to get some things done now.
Yeah.
When the Honourable Company of Master Mariners left us last April, April 23, it gave us an opportunity. They've gone off because their needs are somewhere else now, but it's given us an opportunity because now we have the whole ship.
Yeah.
So we can, and the whole 365 days a year. So that gives us greater opportunities to reward those who give us money.
Yeah.
In the future, we have to go into dry dock, which is a lot more expensive. You can add a naught or two, no, a naught onto that.
Okay.
But this is to keep her going until our fundraising program builds up and goes into the big numbers, and then it will not stop now. That's the issue. But we need to do some things. The point being that she's 90 years old, and as time's gone on, things have happened. For instance, holes have had to be drilled into the bulkhead to put cables and pipes and things through.
Yeah.
But in today's health and safety conscious environment, we've had to do a lot of filling of those, and we still have a lot of that to do.
Right.
But we are fully certificated and we've got all our insurances in place, and we've had to do things that should have been done before, perhaps. But
so what you're saying, Jenny, is that the Wellington's a bit like Swiss cheese, really. I mean, you got your holes all over. I'm surprised it stays up.
We don't have holes.
Oh no. You just said you do have holes.
They're all on the inside of the ship, Graham.
All right, fair enough. Okay,
we don't have any holes on the outside. We did a hull survey in 2022, and it gave us the highest rating on safety of the hull outside. No. So that's good. We've got our fire safety certification. We've got all sorts of other certificates that give us now the chance to do more on board with the money that we raise. The
question I'd like to ask you is about, I want to put myself into the mind of, and look, we can all do this right now, but we want to put ourselves into the mind of the next donor you're going to get. So basically, I don't know enough about the Wellington. I might have heard of it. I might have been walked by it like Kevin, but basically, I don't really know about it. But I want you to address what's in my mind to enter that conversation with your offer. What would it be? How would you start and then communicate that offer to encourage me to want to know more and then at some stage to donate to you?
Okay. I'd start by stressing her importance. She's the only one of her kind left. And there's not another one anywhere in the wings somewhere to come and take her place. So she's the only one of her kind. She's been recognised by the National Historic Ships, and she's been recognised with World Ship status. And because of her career, if you like, she's gathered fans from all over the world. What we have to do is to work on any one of your listeners who might be a fan of old ships, as Kevin is of trains, I understand, get them to see her for what she is, something unique, a heritage, a national and international asset for all communities, whether they're young or old. And what do they get in return? Well, they obviously get acknowledgement, and usual acknowledgement on board the ship, in marketing materials. Graham, you know this only too well. That's all in place, and also the knowledge that they're saving something precious. That heritage is so important. It's our heritage, our history guides us into the future.
Yes.
And an example of that is that we now have a program running called Future Maritime Engineers, which takes out of the mind of students, young people, or everyone, the fact that it might be an overall and a spanner. It's not. It's now computer aided and autonomous shipping and underwater technology. And so we move with the times and use the ship as a catalyst to talk to all of our supporters about, how important every penny is to us. We have sponsorship deals. We can whether some people privately prefer to donate for tax reasons, or others might want to have a sponsorship deal that is a business expense.
Yes.
And both of those are available, and we're very practiced at putting different kinds of packages together for different interests.
Great answer. And I'm sure somebody out there, well, lots of people out there who might be listening to this particular podcast, might be now, Jenny, it might be in 5 years' time, because that's how it works with podcasts. But basically, you might find somebody says, and at the end of the day, the Wellington, it's almost part of our, I want to say this in the nicest possible way, cultural heritage.
Yes.
It's what defines us as a nation. So one little bit, but it's still defining us as a nation, and that and it's there right in London just as much as, I don't know, the London Eye is now, or the Houses of Parliament or whatever. All of those define us as a people, that they are our icons in the same way as Wellington is. It's an icon, and it's also got this wonderful history. And what I like about what you're doing, Jenny, is that you're actually helping young people.
Yes.
And they'll come onto the ship, and they'll have learning opportunities whilst they're there.
Yeah.
Now that's got to be worth. Apparently, the inside of the ship is really posh. It's sort of like really the inside of Kevin's house, really. I mean, it's one of those things. Oh, your house, we can see that here.
We can see Jenny's kitchen, which looks
I mean, you could have put that bottle of wine away, though, Jenny.
Stop it. She's quite a mixture, because she's, in order to cater for anyone who wants an event on board, like a dinner or a celebration of some kind, we have to have the posh bits. Yeah. But we still have a lot of the original ship that people can see. I saw something for the first time, only the other day. We have a wheelhouse. The original wheelhouse is there, and when our kids come in, we've got augmented reality, so they steer the ship, and they use the telegraphs and listen to instructions from the captain, and it's all about teamwork, etc. But because that is vulnerable, it's on an upper deck. There is a spare wheel and a spare telegraphs below decks towards the stern of the ship. So if the wheel above got hit, then the secondary wheel could come into play. I've never seen it before. We were doing a photographic recce of the ship, and I went, oh my God, this is so wonderful. You can go in and hold that original wheel that hasn't been seen by very many people since the end of the war.
Is it like one of those cars that used to have, training cars? Do you remember those? Where they had wheel on both sides? I don't know if I might just remember it badly, but same idea. So in other words, if the main wheel was taken out, then you'd still have an ability to steer the ship.
And connect directly to the screws, the propellers, if you like. So
wow.
She was very well built. She was built quite of quite thick steel, so she's lasted 90 years and is still got another 20 on her clock, if you like. But to our special visitors, it's about experience. It's not about going to another dinner, perhaps, although they are tremendous. It's about our team of maritime experts showing them and telling them about the ship and showing them parts that others haven't seen. So we want to give our special friends, if you like, unique experiences that money can't buy.
Well, I mean, you clearly would like more donors. So the next 100 days wants to get behind your push for donors, and we'll put links on the show notes page to make sure that there is a way in which you can come on to, just in case you forget where to go with the Wellington Trust, but you won't. But the point is, just in case you will, then there'll be a link to you, Jenny, or at least to your web, well, whatever your donation site is.
Yes,
and effectively, then you'll be able to make donations. But give us, when you're asking people for a donation, I mean, presumably you're going to say, well, if you did donate, I don't know, £50, and that will keep something going for so long. If you did donate 500, 5,000, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Have you got a sort of a ready reckoner of, well, this is what it might be worth?
I can give you some examples if that would be okay.
Yeah, sure.
I talked about the fire alarm, replacing the fire alarm. It works, and the manufacturers or the fitters who fitted it somewhere else have brought us all sorts of lovely spares. So, but we're going to run out of those at some stage. That's 40,000.
Right.
I can spend money very easily.
We haven't changed over the years then, Jenny.
No, I haven't.
You're just spending other people's money now, but basically, I get that. No, fair enough.
Then we have to paint the decks. We chip away all the old paint and any damage, and then make it all nice and smooth again and repaint. We have to do the quarter deck and two other decks. And that's going to cost about 30 grand to do. Wow. And the outside of the ship, she's in her white Pacific colours, as I said. And we've had this hull survey done, so we know she's nice and safe underneath. But the waterline is where the most vulnerable part of any ship is, if it's air and water. And we are a tidal river on the Thames, but we're a bit further up, so we're not too brackish, but we have to regularly, and this is on our list of things that should be done this year, strip away the paint, not only above but below the waterline. We go down about 1/3 of a meter below the waterline with a special paint. We don't have a boat to do that in now, so the whole thing again is probably going to cost 40 grand.
Presumably you've explored the idea. If it's about paint, there must be half a dozen big paint companies in the UK. Presumably you've maybe approached them for joint sponsorship.
Yes.
Some of them might have taken you up on it. I don't know, but
we do make those approaches. Obviously, we've got a lot of friends.
Yes.
But remember, we have to pay for the labour. Our engineer has to do this.
Sure.
And it's very time consuming.
No.
So, but we will accept in-kind offers if they're on our program list of maintenance. Obviously, if someone who has a company that would like to talk to us about an in-kind offer and what that might mean, happy to do that.
Wow. I don't know about you, Kevin, but I really hope that the Wellington outlasts all us three.
Absolutely, it's got to. We're recording this a week after D-Day. There's plenty tell us about
the anniversary of D-Day, Kevin. We're not that old.
We're not that old.
I'll do that again and edit this bit out.
Oh yeah, you always do. You always take out your foot. You leave mine in.
I leave yours in. Yes. So we're recording this the week after the D-Day 80th anniversary.
Mm.
So there's plenty reminding us of D-Day. We'll no doubt be reminded all over again next year of VE Day and VJ Day, and we regularly get reminded about Dunkirk and the Battle of Britain. But we've got a ship here that's reminding us about the whole of that important Battle of the Atlantic, which I don't ever recall really being commemorated in the same sort of way. So it's very, very important.
Not in the same way. I mean, the Wellington wasn't at Dunkirk. She happened to be over the other side of the Atlantic at the time, but she was at. No, I've got that wrong. So you'll have to edit that out. The Wellington wasn't at D-Day because she was being refitted on the other side of the world, but she was at Dunkirk or a little further along the coast at a place called Saint-Valery-en-Caux, where the 51st Highlanders were trapped by Rommel's approaching army, and lots of ships went out to try and rescue many thousands of men. And the Wellington got quite a lot off, and other ships got some off, but there were still many thousands that were taken as prisoners of war. And we are having it's not the 51st Highlanders anymore, but we've had an association with the 51st Highlanders. And what I want to do is chase them up through the various iterations of their naval titles, and see what we can do as an anniversary to commemorate them, because our ship rescued 500,000, just under 500,000 people during the war, and we found Cindy Sheehan and her auntie Marion, and just this weekend I've got a young man coming on board with his father, whose grandfather was one of the captains of the Wellington. Wow. So we continually gather this new information, and new information is what we give priority to our special friends and donors. We give them priority in advance, if you like, to hearing the stories. And if there's anything on board, they get priority invitations. So we want to involve them. We want to feel that they're involved as much as we are, because only by having a connection of some kind or another do you get to be as passionate as I am.
I'm just amazed. You've always been a passionate person, whether it's a National Geographic or the DMA or this, and you've always made a big difference. And just shifting the focus back to you, Jenny, what is it about you that people should know in terms of, what's the next few years going to be for you? Are you planning to, take things a little bit easier once you've achieved what you've got, or have you got another role in mind?
I've tried to retire twice, very unsuccessfully.
It's obviously working. Yeah.
And I am one of those fortunate people who can say that work has always been a pleasure. It's been challenging, it's been difficult, it's been exciting, all of the things that you might want. And I always, my glass is more than half full, so I'll always try and see through and find the good things. So having tried to retire twice, the Wellington, I'm pretty much involved with the Wellington as many hours in a week as I've got. Right. Because I'm so, I just want to see all the work that we've done and the memories of those who served on her and died, to be honoured and remembered, and to give the next generation a fun way of learning about heritage and history that isn't just about dates in a book. It's about an experience. I like telling stories. It's about an experience and a story. I can find stories to fit little groups of kids or adults. We had a group on the other day from one of the city services, if you like. and took them to the to steer the ship in the wheelhouse. Couldn't get them off it. These are adults.
Oh, nice.
And very competitive, look, you hit that and you did that, and look at me, I'm doing it properly. So I like developing new things that will entice people to take on board the wonderful heritage that these countries has to offer.
So I assume then you're already an expert in AI, because it's just another thing you have to become an expert in. So is AI featuring in the Wellington Trust?
Okay, what I'm talking about is augmented reality.
Yeah, no, okay, all right.
But AI is coming in. It's coming into all our lives, and we're looking at it to see how we can use it in various ways on the ship, mostly educational, I would say. Yeah. But with AI, I can see uses for redrawing plans and taking the plans of the ship and working out what's here, there, and everywhere, if you like. What I'd like to do is to have an interactive way of explaining how the ship functioned in wartime. Because when people come on board, they want to know, where did they sleep? Where did they eat? Where did they go to the loo? Not necessarily in that order.
The British, who'd have them, eh? Right. Jenny, it's been an absolutely wonderful occasion having you talking about the Wellington Trust here on the Next 100 Days podcast. Thank you for joining us.
So, Graham, we've both been involved in charities. We've had that problem of fundraising. We've had that problem of where are the next trustees coming from? The two classic things that seem to get it in the way of every charity going. Yeah. It's nice to just take a different view of this sort of thing from a mega big fundraising organization that Jenny's involved in, and just learn some lessons.
Yeah, I think so much of what I heard from Jenny then was about education. I mean, she's passionate about it. She wants to, and you can tell from her reading of the history, something that she's really steeped herself in. I mean, in fact, you couldn't do anything else. And if you were a trustee of the Wellington, you'd have to understand.
I think to be a trustee of that sort of thing, you've got to be passionate. And I think that's what fundraisers are coming from as well. People that are also passionate about that sort of thing.
You have to think, though, that they have such a great opportunity. I think maybe certainly with education, but also potentially with a very selective dining and people are always looking for somewhere nice to entertain and so forth. I just think that is something that they could actually exploit really well.
Yeah.
And you yourself obviously worked somewhere close to there and walked by it. It was sort of not quite in my normal walking path in London. I'd go out London Bridge, so I'd kind of not really see that side of things, but I know where it is. It's just
I know where it is, and it's a little bit further upriver than I would normally walk to. So sometime back in London, I might go and look it up. Might even see if it's possible to go on board and have a look around.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hope you do, and I hope you have a really entertaining time when you're there. But I do like, I didn't know this at all, but they have two wheels to steer the ship. I mean, that seems so logical, doesn't it? If you're in a sort of a warlike situation and that bit gets knocked out, it's good to know that you have a second wheel to steer
a contingency plan, Graham.
Yeah, I know, but it's little things like that, and just the way that the hazy sort of colouring of it. There's so much that Jenny shared in such a short period of time. So if you are a donor, potential donor to the Wellington, then please click the link in the show notes. And, I'm not saying that you're going to pay them enough to, shall we say, paint the whole thing. But you never know. I mean, there are some very wealthy people out there listening to the show. So if you can do your bit, you know what to do. Today, I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.